we're going to look into the epistles to see that the message of the cross didn't stop after Good Friday, but it became a central theme throughout the preaching of the apostles. And we're looking at 1 Corinthians. These are the words of Paul. Now, Paul was saying something here. He said, "For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God." And it goes on. We're not going to read the entire chapter, but I really recommend reading this chapter, first chapter of 1 Corinthians, for the essence of the entire message. But going on, it says, the Jews demand miraculous signs. The Greeks look for wisdom. But we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to the Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. But to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than man's wisdom. Let's read that one again. For the foolishness of God is wiser than man's wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than man's strength. We see there's a word here that the preaching of the cross is foolishness to those that are perishing, but it's the wisdom of God. Well, I'd like to show you an aerial view of what is built in Barrie. It's called the Cross. John Harty was a contemporary of my parents and my aunts, and very good friends with them. And I remember my parents telling me it was 1990 when my folks told me, but in 1989, John was healed, and God spoke to him miraculously and told him just to build this cross. At the time, he was building a pond. And God said to him, go ahead and build the pond, finish the pond, and then build the cross, put my commandments on it, and in the center, put my commandment. The 10 commandments are on the crossbars of the cross, and then that you shall love your neighbor as yourself in the very center. Now, that was the first step. What happened with John was when he would finish one part, God would tell him another part, and then another part. And John was so obedient. He just did what God told him to do. Wouldn't it be great if all of his children would do that? God just tell us to do something and we do it and wait for the next step. Well, as time proceeded, he was told to put God's wisdom in big letters and with trees so that it could be seen in the wintertime, and white stones so it could be seen in the summertime. And all of this was progressive. There were more steps, but all I want you to concentrate on, because it illustrates our scripture, was the cross was put first, and then in very large letters, God's wisdom. What did we read in 1 Corinthians, the first chapter? That the preaching of the cross is foolishness to those that are perishing. But what is it to those who are being saved? It's the power of God, and it is the wisdom of God. So John didn't realize, I'm sure he just obeyed, that this is a perfect illustration, a perfect view, tangibly, that we can go and walk on his farm. He's going to be up in heaven with the Lord, but his testimony and his witness is standing there clear and bright for all to see. It is clarifying the words that Paul spoke. Don't be ashamed of the cross, for it's the power of God unto salvation. It's the only means of salvation. It is glorious, it's powerful, and it's God's wisdom. So, do you want to be wise? If you're wise, you will believe in the power of the cross. May God bless you and make you a blessing.